Welcome to Inspire Thinking. As we have discussed, we are entering into the first chapter of this book, How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. The first part of this book is Fundamental Techniques in Handling People. 3 chapters in this first part. The first chapter name is If You Want to Gather Honey, Don't Kick Over the Beehive. If you want to gather honey, don't kick over the beehive. Yes. What we will get to know in this first chapter, I'll tell you. So we'll get to know, don't criticize, don't complain, don't condemn. The principle of this chapter is don't criticize, don't condemn, don't complain. Yes. Dale Carnegie has given many examples in this chapter. But I have taken one best example, that is about Bob Hoover. Bob Hoover is a test pilot and frequent performer at air shows. He was a best pilot and frequent performer at air shows. One day he was returning to Los Angeles to his home from San Diego from one of the air shows. While returning from San Diego to Los Angeles, this Bob Hoover was unable to control the plane. All of a sudden, at 300 feet, he was unable to control the plane, and he was a frequent air show pilot, a best pilot, however, managed to land that plane safely. But lot of damage happened to that plane. After landing, Hoover was suspecting something happened in the engines, and both engines were not working while controlling the plane at 300 feet. And he immediately after landing, he went to those engines and checked what is happening with these engines. And as suspected by Bob Hoover, these both engines were filled with jet fuel instead of gasoline. Actually, these both engines should be filled with gasoline. Instead, it was filled by jet fuel by the mechanic. After looking this, Hoover was so angry, and he wants to meet the service mechanic who did service to this plane. And at lastly, after returning airport, he went to that person. That young man was so sick because of agony of mistake. He was feeling guilty and he was crying, and just tears are streamed down the face. At lastly, Hoover met this person, service mechanic. And this fellow was completely feeling guilty and bad and crying, unable to control his guilty agony of mistake. And Hoover, what he did, imagine for a moment what he could do. Instead of criticizing, instead of complaining, instead of scolding him, he just put his arm on his shoulder and said, "I'm sure you will never do this again. I'm sure you will never do this again. And I'm going to give you my F-51 jet for service to you only." Oh my God. Often parents are tempted to criticize their children, but not Bob Hoover. Instead of criticizing, instead of scolding him, instead of condemning, and instead of complaining him, he just told only one sentence. That is, "I'm sure you will never do this again." And this one sentence has changed that service mechanic completely. And after that, whenever he does servicing to the plane, he double check and deliver it. And he changed himself a lot. That is why the principle of this chapter is don't criticize, don't condemn, don't complain. This is all about. If you want to gather honey, don't kick over the beehive. Until then, Lakshmikant signing out. We'll meet again. Stay tuned.